I know.
How many of you have news on the front page of your device?
I keep my device standard, so it's kind of
okay.
fake.
You don't modify it? You keep all the icons
I reinstall so often, Leo, that I don't know where my apps are. Like I'll spend like an hour putting them in new places, and then I'll reinstall the beta, and it'll be gone. So I don't bother anymore.
Are your apps just kind of a hodgepodge on page 2 through 80?
Yeah, sort of when I download them, and then when I reinstall, they go into alphabetical order eventually.
Oh, that so sucks.
It's learned helplessness.
Andy, you don't have news on your front page. Oh, you use an Android device. Never mind. Alex?
I don't have it on my front page.
I got an iPad here, got a MacBook here, but I got an Android phone.
Yeah.
Sorry.
You know, but looking at it, I think that pretty much, you know, half of my front page is just messaging apps. You know,
I know.
And then social apps and maps and photos and then Flipboard and so I don't really have, you know. And then when I'm kind of like, you know, Rene, where I used to organize it so that the most important things were on the first page, and then the next important things were on the second page, and so on and so forth. And now I just realized that if it's not on the front page, I'm just going to search. You know, I don't.
I guess that's not so bad, is it?
I just search for the app, and I'm not going to try to remember where it is.
I must be the only really anal one here because I have
Siri sometimes too. I just say open this app and it
just
does.
open it.
Yeah.
I have it very carefully. You only have 3 pages. I have my front page. By the way, I just moved news back, saying I'm going to give it another shot, and then I have
what got me
all these folders on the second page.
So I find
each
that folders
category.
are like the death knell. Like if I put something in a folder,
I never see it. It's too deep.
You know,
but it's organization, and then the third page is like newly installed apps that I want to check out, plus a utilities app, an Apple app, and the settings in the App Store.
So it has to be homepage worthy to work its way to the top, Leo.
It's tough, but I'm not probably a typical iPhone user because I don't know.
Well, and I found, I think that what happened for me was that, in case you're wondering what happens if you add apps after you filled all the pages, which I've tested.
There's a limit on how many pages you can have?
There is. I think it's like 10 pages or something like that. And you, when you get to the end of that, it keeps on installing apps, but they just aren't anywhere in your interface. They're literally just, they're like magically not there. So the only way to get to them is search. And so I filled up one of my phones a while ago, and I just found that I was searching for these apps that I just added. And if you delete other apps and then restart the phone, they'll magically appear. So you know they're like they were there, but they were not. They were in an invisible page. And so that is endless, you know. And so you go through. Oh, I really want that app to be somewhere that I can find it because I don't even remember what it's called. And so then you go back and you delete a couple of the whatever. I mean, the absurd number that you have. I have a real clutter problem because I go, oh, well, that was such a good idea for an app. I really should go back and use it. I'm not going to delete it yet. And that's how I end up with 10 pages of apps.
See, I have a photo retouching folder, and I have a productivity folder. But you're right. Once stuff's in there, it's like you don't. It's gone. But if I need to find it, I can get to it. See, I don't want to have to type in, you know, and I don't even, frankly, half the time remember what the name of the app was. So it's not that helpful to ask Siri or to type it in.
I have that. Well, I have to admit, VPN clients. different computers have different clients. I can never remember which one to launch on which.
So
machine.
How do you find it? You have to just dig through page after page.
Well, and I have to admit that what I've learned to do now is that when I get a new phone, I don't restore the phone. I literally okay,
I start over.
You know, and I just go, here's the deal. When I go, oh, I really want that app, I've already bought it. It's just a cloud download.
You just download
and so, you know, so when it comes to me that I don't have that app and I actually miss it, I put it on the phone.
That's a good idea.
So then it starts very, you know, it's kind of a meritocracy of what ends up on the phone, the next phone compared to the last phone.
That's actually good. I recommend people do that with their computers. Don't install stuff until you need it. But now, see, this is the thing that gripes me about Springboard that I've always thought was just primitive as hell. You can only have, but maybe I'm wrong, and you guys will tell me I'm wrong. You can only have one instance of any. There's no aliases or shortcut idea. There's only one instance of any icon. So I can't have a folder that has photos and retouching and have an icon for the same app in both. That seems to me very primitive.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. The launcher, the Springboard is just so overdue for just a total slash and burn and rebuild. There was a couple of days of rehab when I went back to Android, and one of them was reminding myself that the desktop on Android is simply a blank canvas that you can set up however you want. That I've probably got about 90 to 100 apps on the phone. of which only about 18 are actually icons I have on the desktop.
Right.
And I can have multiple instances of them, and I can set up screens that are just widgets. And just every time that, and it seems silly on the iPhone and never stops seeming silly on the iPhone. And now that I have the iPad Pro, which I legitimately use as much as I use my MacBook, it seems downright stupid.
You know, if you don't want to rewrite Springboard, there's an easier way. Just say allow people to install third-party launchers. There's a wonderful ecosystem of third-party launchers on Android. Microsoft even makes one.
Yeah, it's amazing. That's I have a couple of launchers that I haven't gone back to yet because I just haven't looked back into them. That are just they're so good at predicting what app you're going to be using in any one circumstance, and you just want to see that kind of assistance. I am encouraged by the fact that Apple seems to be putting a lot of that effort that they would be putting into creating a brand new version of Springboard into trying to make Springboard irrelevant, either through app launching via Siri or through trying to put that little translucent icon at the corner of the screen to say, I'm guessing you're going to want the Starbucks app here, so we're going to put that there in case you want it. But I really need for them to stop, like, moving the chess piece but leaving their finger, on the rook. Just make the move. Either say you're going to improve Springboard, or say you're going to give us the next thing that makes Springboard irrelevant, because this is starting to become embarrassing.
And again, I think that for me, what it has gotten good at is on the apps that I use, when we're talking about typing them in, doing a search, it's not like I'm typing the whole name in. Usually, if I hit F, Field Runners comes up immediately, because that's my number one use for the F key at the beginning. So it's actually pretty smart at figuring out what that is. And so it really is. Pretty smart where you just like scroll down and hit D.
Yes, but I think we're creatures of habits. We create pathways, and one of the pathways is just physical gesture to the app we want, and that searching is not, even if it's just swipe down F. That's going to change, right? You're going to have to relearn that.
And there's got to be a better way, but I just you will find that if you do it that way, it gets much.
I feel like people who use iPhones kind of. Stockholm syndrome. We're all just we're battered and.
But also, they were so desperate not to repeat the mistakes of the hierarchy. That's why they resisted folders for the first few versions.
Right.
They just didn't. They didn't think that people should have to interact with
maybe most people just have 20 apps or maybe I should just only have the front page apps and delete everything. Or
to a larger point, though, I think Andy mentioned this earlier. It works on the original iPhone because it's a very simple device and there aren't third-party apps, and you have one app in screen, and it's easy. So many people who were just so intimidated and found computers so inaccessible could tap an icon, tap the home button, go back, tap another icon. Super simple usage model. But then you look at something like the iPad Pro, and it doesn't make any sense anymore. No, and you have carousel for the watch, and you have Pine board and headboard for the Apple TV, and there's no board for the iPad. And it really says like this can, if I think Jason Snell said this, but if Apple sat down and thought about an iPad today, there's no way they just randomly come up with Springboard again. It would look different. So let's move towards that, how it would look in an iPad centric world.
Right.
Yeah. It just doesn't seem to understand that a phone particularly is such a weird app environment. The 6 apps that I use, I spend 90% of my time using on the iPad, for instance. I will just absolutely launch by simply hitting Command Space and typing the first couple letters, because I can remember Omni Outliner, and I can remember Microsoft Word, I can remember Ulysses. But the thing is, on a phone, there's like the 6 apps you use all the time, but then there are going to be 40 apps that you use maybe once a week, like your online banking app, or maybe the app that gives you the online viewer guide for your cable system or whatever like that. And the times where you need to launch that, you need to be able to find it really quickly. And so you don't know. It's terrible. There's so many apps that I want to. If I'm using a Fred's Bank, I want to launch the Fred's Bank app. I keep wanting to type FRE. They're reminding, they decided to name it My Fred's Bank. And so that's the sort of stuff that you just can't solve. And like I said, it's not even so much that it's partly that the current Springboard is really, really inadequate. It's also, you have had iOS out since 2000 2009 was it, or 2008? It's like, you have had time to think about this now. There's been an entire presidential administration has come and gone since you came up with this idea. You're not telling me that you can't think of something better than a static grid of every icon that you have installed on this thing. If not, spend less time figuring out how to curve glass, spend more time how to launch an app.
You're reminding me, Andy, that this is in fact the 9th anniversary of the announcement of the iPhone. January 9th, 2007 was almost exactly 9 years ago. Yeah, well, that's when he called the Starbucks.
To Andy's point, though, I mean, like there are other ideas there, but there's a couple of things that it's always tough because Apple now is carrying the sort of legacy debt. We all made fun of Windows for so many years, that you have hundreds of millions of people who are used to doing it this way, and you also have people like with the new education stuff who are 5 years old, 4 years old, 6 years old, and people who are in their 90s, and you want to have something. You want to have a system that can scale with them, and it's a problem that absolutely deserves attention.
It's challenging.
And they started refactoring. I think since iOS 5, they've been refactoring Springboard every year. Like they broke it into backboard and then frontboard, and there's a bunch of different things in there. And XPC is doing much more. So my guess is we won't really see a replacement. But like Andy said, there'll be so many, or maybe Alex said, there'll be so many ways to interact with this that our understanding of what apps and what launchers are will be really different. Like right now, I use pCalc in widget space. I never open the app anymore. I use Pinterest as a share widget. I never open the Pinterest app. What it means to be an app is only a little bit different now, but in 3-4 years, it'll be phenomenally that app's going to be on my car. This will be on my watch. That'll be on my TV. And I hope that Apple's really working on how that system works rather than just incremental changes here.